to come to Kotalavala Gardens and address all of you. I know most of you are not from Kotalavala Gardens, but you are here today simply because you want to pledge your support to the UMP. And I would like to thank Bharata and Prashanti for organizing this meeting to enable the United National Party to come back into power, and also for supporting me and Iran. I think that is the primary objective. This is my seat. I am the organizer for the Colombo West seat. This is my constituency. And it is my duty as a member from this constituency to make sure that all of you who represent this country from Colombo West to be okay. Whether you have your roads carpeted, whether you have the street lights on, whether you have your drainage problems sorted out, or perhaps making policies with regards to the betterment of your kids, education, the economy, etc., etc. Now that is the primary objective of a Member of Parliament. And that is why people vote us in and send us to the most supreme institution called Parliament. But some of us, after we get elected, we do forget the actual objective of going to Parliament. Now this is what I've discovered among my colleagues, because they tend to, of course, furnish the constituency. They tend to go back to the electorate. Every time they're elected, all they think about is, how do I get elected again? And what do I have to do to get elected again? Do I have to run the funeral rounds? Do I have to run the wedding rounds, and do the normal, mundane, accepted norms to get re-elected? And in the process, they forget the bigger picture, why they are there. And that is something that I've seen among some of my colleagues. When we talk about gender issues, when we talk about national issues with regards to whether it's the economy, whether it's corruption, whether it's malnourishment, whether it's violence against women and children. And sometimes, we are in the fighting the good fight to make a difference. And we see very little support from our colleagues, simply because they have lost the plot or the picture in why they are there. But I may not have been with you on a daily basis. Whenever there was a request to either do something for the community, I have always been there. I've always supported you with my decentralized budget. And I know this community was always taken care of by Bharata, and I thank him very much for doing the coordination part on behalf of Arshad and me. Yes, we do welcome the Honorable Deputy Minister, Mr. Iran Vikramaratne. Thank you for being here in the Now, Iran is one such person who sees the bigger picture, who works towards making policies. And we may not do, like I said earlier, all of the funeral runs, or perhaps all of the mundane things, because that's what they expect of a politician. The general norm is, if you're a politician, you need to visit them in hospital. You need to do the funeral runs. You need to go for their, if they have, like the community has a sports club and they have a sports meet. And, these are things that normally they expect of politicians. But sometimes it can be a very tedious affair. And it can, you might get too caught up with that, and you might forget the actual objective of being a Member of Parliament, or perhaps being a responsible minister of a particular subject. Today, the United National Party is back in governance. But this is only for 100 days. And the 100-day program is also tiring us down and tying us down. And as a result of that, I find it a little, I suppose, I mean, this is not an excuse, but we should be playing politics knowing that we are going for an election in a couple of days, or within 2 months, or maximum I would say 3 months, because the talks are that it might be extended till after Vesak. And we should be actually right now in the election campaign mode, you know, running from constituency to constituency, running the district, mustering the votes, making people happy, you know, perhaps doing stuff with the decentralized budget and pleasing people. But unfortunately, we have, myself, Iran, and the United National Party team have got responsibilities, and part of that responsibility is to fulfill the 100-day program. There are constitutional changes, amendments, new policies to be brought in. Also, as much as there are constitutional amendments and changes and new policies to be brought in, there are also some of the urgent needs that were identified by the Honorable His Excellency the President. To fulfill those needs are also a top priority for us. Now, under my subject, child affairs, I've got a couple of them. One is the pregnant mothers, 20,000 nutritional program. I have worked very hard in the last couple of weeks, speaking to the academia, speaking to nutritionists, speaking to gynecologists, speaking to child specialists, speaking to people who work with kids on the ground, speaking to community leaders, and we have come up with a concept and a proposal, and we put forward the proposal, and it was passed yesterday by the cabinet, and the first delivery will take place on the 21st of this month in Colombo, with the patronage of His Excellency the President. Now, that is just one aspect. There are also constitutional amendments with regards to child abuse, with regards to child protection, with regards to the probation department, and also the child secretariat, which concentrates mainly on the early childhood development programs. These are other areas. And on top of that, we have also pledged to increase female representation at the local councils by 25%. Female representation at the provincial councils by 25%. So we have had several rounds of talks with the Prime Minister, with the Election Commissioner. We sat with the Election Commissioner for a whole day in the Election Commissioner Secretariat, and we drew up a few proposals. And now it is time for us to get our party leaders to convince them and to get them to agree on reservation of seats, so there will be more women like me out there serving their communities in the capacity as councillors, provincial ministers, MPs, and perhaps later in the National Assembly. Now, whilst doing all this, I think Bharata made a very, he made a fabulous speech. He made a speech and he spoke about why he's supporting the United National Party, why he believes that Ranil Wickremesinghe should come back into power, why he believes in me and Iran. Iran, you were not here. He said some flattering things about you and me, especially about you, that he wants to have honest politicians. He not only said that, he also said that he is thankful to God that he's not living in California. So, now I strongly believe that this country has to move forward. It saddens me to see where we are today. You and I, we all know where this country was just a couple of decades ago. You know, we were a country that the entire South Asian region wanted to emulate. We, when it comes to certain indicators, we top the list. We are a success story, whether it's education or health, and also we were economically far more empowered in the past than the other countries in the region. You all know, this is a famous story that we all quote, how when Lee Kuan Yew came to Sri Lanka in the late 60s, early 70s, and he said he wants to make Singapore Colombo. He only landed in Colombo. He was so impressed, and he wanted Singapore to be a Colombo. But where are we today? All these countries have overtaken us. They have become Asian giants, including India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal. Economically, they are stronger than us, some of these countries. When we talk about gender issues, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Nepal are way ahead in comparison to us. When we talk about gender equality in the political realm, we are at the bottom when we look at world indicators. Maldives have surpassed Sri Lanka. It has put us to shame. Economically, we've gone through so many hardships that I believe after the war, the previous president had a golden opportunity to put things right in this country. But he didn't. That was a lost opportunity. Instead, they started robbing. Robbing to the point that malnutrition among pregnant mothers in the estate sector grew to 41.6%. Malnutrition among early childhood children under 5, in Kilinochi, according to the state statistics, is 40.6%. According to statistics done by the WHO and other non-governmental organizations on the ground, is 55%. In districts like Monaragala, 31%. Stunting among children, wasting among children, grew to 38%. On an average, 1 in every 3rd child is malnourished. The low birth weight rate grew from 16.6 to 8%. Malnutrition in districts like Gampaha, a neighboring district, increased by 12%. Now this is after the war. What went wrong? Because instead of moving forward, when the whole world, of course we all know that we live in a borderless global village today, and the world has evolved into a knowledge economy, but what do we depend on? We still depend on the migrant woman worker to go overseas and to bring us that dollar. That is our number 1 foreign revenue earner. The number 2 is still the apparel industry. Number 3, perhaps, I'm not an economist, I think you might get a better overview from Iran. I believe it's the tea and tourism. Now this government has been in power for the previous government has been in power for almost 20 years. There hasn't been a single new economic project brought into the country. All they did was, like I always say, in the guise of creating infrastructure, by borrowing from commercial entities at a premium interest rate. Of course, when they borrow, 1/3 of that is in somebody's pocket, or they have invested that they invested it overseas, bought overseas properties, whilst their children are studying overseas and living in the lap of luxury. The innocent children here are malnourished, and some of them become school dropouts at a certain age. I remember once when I went to Monaragala, this is a story that, every day in, day out, some of these stories that I learn and hear and I experience on the ground saddens me. I come home with a heavy heart. I remember going to Monaragala recently for the UO election. I was at a meeting and there was this little girl who came and gave me a sheaf of beetle and greeted me. I wanted to speak to the girl. I was talking to the girl. She was very shy. She was coy. She moved away. Her father was standing by. I asked the father whether she goes to school. He said he has 3 children. Even though they can afford to boil manioc and put it into the tiffin box with, they say manioka sambole, the leaves, they make a sambol. But to send the child to school, each child would cost him 40 rupees a day. 20 rupees one way, 20 rupees to go up and down is 40 rupees. 3 kids, 120 rupees a day is something that he can't afford. So whenever he can find the money, If one child goes today, the other child goes the next day. And some weeks they don't go to school at all. That is how poor people have become. And the previous government, when they saw the dollar sign, money coming in their faces, they lost sight of the actual needs of the general public. Fortunately, the people of this country, especially you, wanted to make a change at this election. And my gratitude, I have no words to pay my gratitude and to acknowledge the perhaps intelligence and the commitments made by especially the Colombo district people. I think the edge we had to win this election was what Colombo district gave us, what you gave us. The kind of campaign that you did on the ground. You used the social media to make a change because you knew the actual ground situation. You were smart enough, you were intelligent enough, you could see how the world has evolved into something else and that we were lacking behind and we were in a bit of a spot and a rut. So my gratitude to you, I have no words to explain that gratitude. You made the change, and this change is what has brought us into power. Now by bringing us into power, I must say, in these last 55 to 56 days, we have done quite a bit of work. We have not only made certain amendments, we have not only brought new policies, like when we brought the Act on protecting the victim and the witness protection bill, like that, and also the drug policy that was brought in yesterday. Things that went under the carpet, that was bought by the drug mafia, was brought back by the president because he was passionate about it. He's passionate about the people's health, he's passionate about the people's needs, and these needs put into the 100 days to implement. And one such need is what I will be implementing on the 21st. Enabling the pregnant mothers to be well nourished so that we could eradicate and reduce the low birth weight rate. And I'm glad that this subject came under me. So what I'm saying is, either we have created the foundation or we are about to fulfill all the promises that were given in the 100-day program. There might be a few that might take a bit of time. They may not be visible and you may not see the results immediately of the 100-day program. We will but certainly set the groundwork, do the groundwork, and set the standards and create the platform in order to fulfill the 100 days. I strongly believe the only person who can take this country forward, who can make this country a strong global challenger, is the Honorable Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. He's got the know-how, he's got the experience, he's a veteran when it comes to politics, he's smart when it comes to, you talk about any subject with him, he's like a walking encyclopedia. That's what I always thought about him. You could speak to him on any topic. You could speak to him about anything, and he will always have the answer. And besides, he knows exactly how to move globally. His global connections, international relations, bilateral relations are very strong. And also, when it comes to the economy, I think there is no person like Ranil Wickremesinghe who would, with a clear vision, take this country forward. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, we are still a commodity exporter and not a smart Sri Lanka. It's about time that Sri Lanka moved away from this commodity export business to becoming a smart Sri Lanka. And I have always been advocating about education, a lot of emphasis in education, and I believe unless we invest in human capital, no country can move forward. And the key to success or sustainable development, in my opinion, is of course renewable energy, science, technology and innovation. If we do not invest in these subjects, we cannot see a country move forward. And I see this happening under the leadership of His Excellency the President and the Prime Minister, with his expertise, his knowledge, his skills, his dedication and commitment. I strongly believe we will become a smart Sri Lanka and we will move forward and we will be a global challenger. We would be able to stand on our own feet, and we don't have to go around with a begging bowl asking for aid, which I'm doing right now to fulfill some of my promises. My job is having dialogues with the World Bank, practically every INGO that could give us aid in order to fulfill some of the immediate needs to eradicate some of these issues that we are faced with. But we won't have to do that in the future if we only identify some of the resources that we have in this country. And the biggest resource we have is our human capital, human resource. Because we have resources like the minerals, the tea, the scenic beauty and the culture and history that goes back to such a long time, which we could tap into if we are to improve tourism. If we are to tap into now, when I talk about minerals, with my little knowledge, this is what I know. We have something called ilmenite in this country, and ilmenite is exported to Japan in gunny bags. 80 metric tons of ilmenite will be exported. This is, I'm just giving you a rough figure, at $8 billion US, or $8 million US, say. Now Japan would reprocess this ilmenite into titanium and export it to the US at a $250 million US. That's the value addition. Now these are things that we need to actually look at. How do we add value to certain things? The things that we have. Let's take our tea. Where are we going with our tea? When the world is looking at white tea, pink tea, tea with its antioxidant agents, to retain the antioxidant agents and create a market, a niche market for good quality, the higher end of the market. These are things we need to look at, and I strongly believe with the leadership of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, this country can do wonders, and the next generation, I strongly believe, is a very fortunate generation where they will have the privilege of moving towards a knowledge economy, and we can see a better tomorrow for us. So I urge you to support the United National Party in the next election. Of course, there are talks about going back to the first-past-the-post system, partially a first-past-the-post system, and a PR system. We have made a pledge in the 100-day program to change the electoral system to partially a first-past-the-post system and a PR system. But we haven't made a promise in the 100 days to go for the next election under that system. Now, this is something that people are misinterpreting at this point of time, and people are getting confused. The promise is to form an all-party committee to look into changing the electoral system and to change the constitution, devolve executive powers from the presidency to parliament, and also change the electoral system, and then dissolve parliament on the 23rd of April. That's the promise. And if we are to dissolve parliament according to the 100-day program on the 23rd of April, then we have to go for the election with the old system, the PR system. The next election will be under the first-past-the-post system. So there are various controversial discussions, plus I think all parties have to agree upon the 100-day program and vote for the 100-day program in order for us to fulfill the 100-day program. And I strongly believe that it will happen, because the leaders are discussing at this time, and they would, perhaps arrive to some kind of consensus to achieve this, and this will be achieved. Thank you.
Colombo East, Colombo